how do we actually provide Earth observation-based services? Like we've done with the weather. And how the space community engages and prepare for the fourth industrial revolution. This is my new love. EO as a service, there's a number of things that we know. We know there are countless social and environmental issues to be addressed, and the Deputy President listed them. Food insecurity, water shortages, disappearing ecosystems, animal poaching, illegal mining, all the way to disaster mitigation. The spectrum is so wide. We know these challenges, and we know many more of these challenges. We also know that there are clear political policy and strategies that our government sets to prioritize how and who has the mandate to have these addressed. The Deputy President says, if you can contribute, it doesn't matter how slight your contribution is to these priorities and these national development agendas, then we can applaud ourselves. Governments have articulated these at a global level. We talk about the Agenda 2030 on Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement on Climate, the Sendai Framework on Disaster Risk Reduction. We come to the continental level and we look at the ambitions that have been articulated in Agenda 2063 by our political heads. We cannot forget the national level, because even before all of these existed, at a national level, we have our national development plans, but we also have the thematic policies and strategies, whether it's talking on climate change mitigation and adaptation, or sustainable agriculture, human settlement, and spatial planning. These are the ones at the national level. And these are the ones, if we were to really support, then we will make a difference in the continental agendas, and we will make a difference in the global agendas, but most importantly, we will make a difference in people's lives. Yesterday, the Cabinet Minister of Defense told us that at the end of the day, it is all about the people, making people's lives better. In South Africa, we have distilled the service delivery agenda to the triple challenge. And I actually heard the Deputy President refer to the same: poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Because sometimes it's so difficult to remember what the national agendas, what the Agenda 2063 and the global agendas are saying. But if we were to remember that we're supposed to make people's lives better, and we remember only these three as the agenda that our government has, because at the end of the day, whatever our governments put up, they're wanting to address poverty, inequality, and unemployment. I'm going to come back to this later. We also know that Earth observation can detect changes in climate change that are caused by climate change. We can monitor crop growth. We can identify areas of productive soils. Actually, the Deputy President also asked us, how can we make this continent more productive? We definitely can help to making this continent more productive. We can support spatial planning. We have proven day in and day out that this capability or this technology that we have can be used to address social and environmental issues, that it can be used to support policy implementation, policy formulation, and policy review. We've also established over years advocacy groups such as the Group on Earth Observation. And GEO on its advocacy has identified 3 policy frameworks that it uses to engage. These being the Sustainable Development Goals, Paris Agreement on Climate Change, and the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. Meaning that GEO takes and packages the work that it has on its work program. It's got over 70 activities. Packages these and use this as a communication toolkit to show our political leaders how Earth observation responds to the global developmental agenda. It also means that at a local level, as we try to engage our political leaders and we struggle to articulate the value of Earth observation, and we struggle to actually connect how what we're doing day in, day out can help address policy, we could take some of these communication toolkits that organizations like GEO have prepared. For example, you might be looking to know, how does Earth observations or geospatial sciences map into the Sustainable Development Goals? Which of the goals can be supported by Earth observations? Which of the targets can be supported by Earth observations? And which of the indicators can be supported by Earth observations? You get this in just one pamphlet in a graph. Visit the GEO website and you'll find this. We've also established efforts on coordination, because we say, and this was repeated all the time yesterday, partnerships are critical. Working throughout the value chain is critical. So coordination becomes critical because it also helps us spend our resources better. AfriGeo is one such coordination platform that we've set up for Earth observations, and RCMRD is now helping us to take this initiative forward, and we are much, much appreciative. Hopefully, through the partnerships that we formulate in AfriGeo, we can actually deliver together on the Earth observations for impact. For over 50 years now, I won't go to the moon landing, but it's been over 50 years, and this excludes the aerial imagery analysis. If we just look at the time of Landsat alone, that we've been involved in data analysis, Earth observations, data analysis. Over these 50 years, we've done a lot of research, successfully so, on Earth observation applications. We've implemented a lot of projects at national, regional, and global level. We have developed plenty of products and demonstrators across thematic and societal benefit areas. We have built capacity, we've built knowledge, we've built infrastructure. When we talk about infrastructure, we have to remember that we start with the Earth observation satellites, because we're all about satellite data. The data holding centers, data processing and exploitation platforms. Of late, we've got your ESA exploitation platforms, we've got your Google Earth engines, and we've got data cubes such as Digital Earth Africa. We continue to develop and produce in all of these areas. Further, if we look broader on the space applications, we have had critical successes in ensuring that space technologies or space applications are used to make our lives better. Satellite communications for banking, what would we do without ATMs, without online banking? M-Pesa comes in, right? What would we do without the weather reports that we are so dependent on to tell us whether I should wear these open shoes or not? Recently, the International Aviation Authority, ICASA, put out a law that for all flights, regardless of whether it's a small aircraft or it's the big airlines that we fly to get to places like Nairobi, when Dr. Koronziza calls us, that they must all use space weather as part of the navigation system. It's in regulation, it's in law. Proudly, the South African National Space Agency has been awarded to provide that service as a data center for Africa. And we are quite proud to actually be playing along the big guns as you would find in Europe, China, and Russia, and the United States. And yet with these achievements on getting Earth observation operationalized and making our lives so much better every day, to a point that we take it for granted that actually the reason why we can be able to get weather forecasts is because of satellites, we still feel that we have not done enough. And it's quite clear that this feeling is not us being hard on ourselves, it's actually us facing the reality, because we have not done enough. We have not mainstreamed Earth observation services in most of our thematic areas into decision-making processes. Could it be that most often our products that we've been developing and the projects that we've been busy with all this time, for 50 years, are mainly ad hoc once off, and most often end at a demonstration level. We build them to say, we're going to demonstrate the value. How many more decades are we going to demonstrate the value of Earth observations? At some point, we need to get to talking about Earth observations as a service, that it becomes so mainstreamed and so routine that we do not talk about demonstrators as a community any longer. The funding challenges are not going to change, but we also cannot continue using the minimum resources we have to create yet more demonstrators. To what end, I ask? So what does a service mean? And how does the process for a service look like? First of all, the service must be considered from the point of view of the consumer or the user, as we call them in our field. It must be addressing a pain point. If we're going to talk about the service, it's no longer just purely about our scientific interest. We would like to know how Earth observations could be used. It's us about publishing. The service has to be very specific, that someone wants it. You know who that is because you've spoken to that person. And they have told you that this is what they want. The Deputy President told us what he wants for Kenya. He wants to know whether we can contribute to making sure that the continent is productive. Where should we plant? How do we monitor the crops? So that they could make better investment for food security. Secondly, if you're developing a service, you must apply the co-creation and co-development approach, which means your stakeholders are integrated into the service design process. You iterate and reiterate your product to a point that it actually addresses the exact pain point that your client has. The service must be represented as a sequence of interconnected actions, and the service should be represented as concrete objectives, and the environment of a service must be considered as a whole. We saw this yesterday with the Digital Earth Africa, where we started being asked questions about the last mile. If we were providing a service to the farmer, Digital Earth Africa alone, as we are currently constituted, is not going to provide that service to a farmer who wants to know when to plant. It's a very simple question the farmer is asking, when to plant, and the expectation is he's going to get an SMS that says, next week will be a good time to plant. That scope is currently not in what you saw when we talk about Digital Earth Africa yesterday. If we were saying that's the service we were going to provide, then that means we need to have more partners in the room so that the service is presented as holistic. The quality of a service looks at a number of things. Two most important ones: the reliability of the service. Can your clients depend that that service that you're promising them today, if they give you $1 million, that tomorrow that service will be there? Or you're going to tell them that the $1 million is run out because it was donor funding that you used to develop the service? It must be dependable and it must be accurate, because clients are going to make decisions on it. The Deputy President says Kenya needed to know what drought is coming so that they know how to save the farmers and how to bring in the investments and the funding that is required. If you give false information, wrong instruments will be assets. We need to make sure that it's dependable and it's accurate. The service must provide assurance. It must be capable to convey trust and confidence, which means we need competence, the required skills, and we need credibility. My word is my bond. If I say it's going to happen, it means it's going to happen. So sometimes, and we saw this also yesterday, the closing session, Stephen Ramage actually did a nice job in summarizing some of the things that we had left out or some of the things that have come up during the discussions that we didn't dwell deeper on. And one of them was, how do we articulate, how do we address expectations that will not be met by Digital Ed Africa? It's quite specific. For us and for your service to give assurance, you must also be able to articulate what it is that it will not do, so that your client doesn't turn around tomorrow and say, but you said, or but you never said, because clients do say that as well. You never said, you should have said. I have a question for those who are more informed than me in the room. There's been a movement to define service levels because of digitization and the change in business models that brought us the terms like data as a service, infrastructure as a service, which is often now captured under platform as a service, and content as a service, software as a service. The question I have is, where do we actually map Earth observation products into these levels? So I think data as a service, data providers like myself, whether it's public or private, this is where we fit in, space agencies. Platforms as a service, cloud providers. Software as a service, those of you who can actually code, algorithm developers. Where do we put the output products that we develop? Take, for example, your land cover map that comes out of the data, and you use the infrastructure and the software to actually come up with a land cover product. How do we articulate that level? So this is a question you can help me figure the answer out during the social event. I saw earlier on that there was a social event later on today. You can help me with that. Would we possibly keep it under data as a service? Because it is, to someone else, it could still be seen as yet another level of the data. Or do we take from the media and go for content as a service? I don't know. I'm open to hearing your thoughts. Now, when we talk about the operationalization or AO as a service, let's take one example. A couple of years ago, well, not so long ago, I make it sound so long ago, but maybe it was, not so long ago, with NASA Severe, actually in RCMRD, and the AfriGeo community and the working group on land cover. It's good to actually see some of the faces from GRC and so forth in the room on working group for land cover. We undertook to look and see land cover mapping in the continent. We asked the questions on, do you have a land cover in your country? Do you have a regional land cover? When was it generated? And when will it be updated? And all those questions. When we ask about the timeframes for land cover mapping, you would get answers that range between 5 and 10 years. If you look at land management, spatial planning, and environmental reporting requirements in any country, the reports are generated way, way more frequent than that. So where do we get our time frame to say land cover mapping 5 to 10 years? We give this response because we've been restricted by data and by platforms. We haven't been able to access data so frequently, and we haven't been able to process data so frequently. This time frame was definitely not set up by the policy requirements. So land cover maps, as much as we love them, we need to make sure that we actually develop them timely, so that they could actually do that which we really want them to do, which is help policymakers. And the land cover data set actually is one of the most important data sets ever, because it cuts across so many application areas. So we need to focus on moving towards services. And when we talk services, I repeat, we're addressing a pain point of a client. So the land cover maps, and thanks to Digital Earth Africa, so I'm putting my own priority thing there, Adam, we could actually have them appropriate for those environmental reports to be developed, supported by Earth observations data. If we commit to this, it will be a service that we say we provide, and now we can say we can actually start thinking about making those promises and commitments, because we will have Digital Earth Africa. Where does the fourth industrial revolution come in all of this? Often, I hear people saying, fourth industrial revolution is coming. No. Fourth industrial revolution is here. We're not talking about a future of the next generation. Humanoid robots, such as Sandy and Sophia, become more and more intelligent each day, to a point of being able to participate in conversation beyond the trained responses that they initially had. And this is because of artificial intelligence. So they're learning, they're taught to learn, so that if you ask them something that they were not programmed for, they can search their database and provide you an answer. The last tour of Sophia was quite amazing. She has 50 emotional impressions that she can make. She can smile, she can laugh, she can cry, she can look sad. And when you ask her, why are you sad? She'll tell you why she's sad. Of course, that part is programmed. But you could ask Sophia something about climate change that is not programmed, and she'll be able to give you a response, because she's got enough data to actually give you that. So artificial intelligence, even on robotics, is not something of the future. How would I define 4IR to Andre's grandmother? It depends whether she bakes good cookies or not, Andre. It could be a short or it could be a long answer. I don't have this answer, so I think Stephen should add this into the WhatsApp group for telling Andre's grandmother what is GIS and what is Earth observation, so we can add there. What would we tell Andre's grandmother what 4IR is? It's much easier to understand 4IR if one actually looks at how it all evolves. First industrial revolution, we can say here, because we're talking about steam engines and so forth, we looked at knowledge formulation. That's the first industrial revolution. The second industrial revolution around electrification, it was knowledge evolution. The third, internet. Let's call it knowledge distribution. And the fourth industrial revolution, cyber infrastructure, artificial cognization, robotics, knowledge mutation. So someone needs to translate that for Andre's grandmother. I cannot. The technologies that are of interest to us in space is your artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, and quantum mechanics. Of course, we're talking about deep learning, soft learning, and machine learning. But for space specifically, what does it mean? And I'm going to try to illustrate this in terms of SANSA. 4IR is not possible without data. It's very data intense. The Earth observation or satellite data has not even found itself yet to be used in 4IR. So we have a commodity that could actually be a good contribution to the 4IR and to those who are busy with AI and IoT. SANSA alone has got over 30 years archive of satellite imagery that covers wall-to-wall the South African land surface and coastline, and as well as over 80 years of geomagnetic data. This data has not found its way at all into the technologies or the products that are coming out of 4IR. In satellite development for the near Earth and deep space, small satellites, we can now look at building smaller satellites because we're looking at small computer chips that could enable onboard computation, novel sensors, and robotics. 4IR for interconnected space systems optimized to operate and provide multiple payloads for the provision of intelligent data downstream, what they call M2M platforms. 4IR technologies in satellite operations related to the data telemetry, tracking and command of satellites. 4IR in the ground station management. Like I said, I'm looking from a perspective of a space agency, because these are all the components that we have to deal with. But most importantly for us here, it's 4IR in Earth observation applications. machine learning for time series analysis, neural networks for forecasting, and development of near real-time applications. The process right now, we download, satellite takes the data, ground stations pick it up and download it, gets processed in the ground station, get passed beyond the D mode to actually come to the Earth observations. We process it and we put it up for someone to download it. Okay, so now with Google Earth Engine, data cubes and stuff, no more downloading, okay? So we take that part away. But there's still so much processing that we have to do before we can actually get to the data. Now, what happens if we can actually build the tools that allows what we term near real-time applications? That as soon as that data arrives, it doesn't even have to hit my archives before your land cover map is updated, or that fire application is updated, or your climate change, whatever you're looking at, is updated, because you know when the satellite is going to be delivering the imagery, and you fetch it immediately, and your algorithm is ready to process it. Near real-time applications. Of course, 4IR has an impact, can be impacted by space. And this is where our space weather applications come in, especially in communications and navigation. Access to land and land management is one of the major issues in the continent, and blockchain is currently being investigated, as it could be useful to make sure that the records, which in most times are sparse and most times are kept in various places and in various databases, but they can actually be all searched and reported on timely. And you can even include analysis in the Earth observations in that. So as our governments are setting the national and continental policies around 4IR, what are we as the Earth observations community doing about it? Have we actually started, people in this room, to actually work with these technologies to improve the workflows? But most importantly, have we considered the opportunities that 4IR gives? But with the opportunities also comes potential downsides, only if we are not prepared. 4IR will change the way our business is being done today. I tell my staff in EO, if you cannot get yourself ready to develop algorithms, and you think you're going to keep processing data the way you've been processing it in the past 5 years, wait until you have a digital Earth or a data cube to work with, because that part of your job is long gone. It's not even, as I said, 4IR is arrived because we're not even there yet. The community is going to expand. Data science, data analytics, they're going to come in and they're going to exploit this data. To contribute to sectors we have not even made that much strides in providing services on. This is an opportunity. None of us really know what at the end of the day 4IR is really going to do. But we can dream of opportunities that it will bring. But for us who are also employers, we also need to think about the future of work. And also as employees, we also need to think about our relevancy and upskilling to make sure that we fit in the future of work. Allow me to go back to the triple challenge and EO. How can we as the Earth observation community contribute to the triple challenge? Access to data and information is a crucial tool. I think it was the cabinet minister yesterday who said, open data access democratizes knowledge. This is a tool that you can use to address inequality. As we all know, the term information is power. Development of Earth observation-based commercial services, spin-off companies for us who are in government, would enable us to be creators of employment. We know that private sector provides about 90% of employment in developing countries. It's not government that employs people. So we need to make sure we stimulate the industry's Earth observations so that more industries in this sector come up. Do we actually even have a dream as the Earth observations community of what our industry would look like and what our contribution to the GDP would look like? We talk about mass capacity, mass human resources, but we haven't quite talked about the economic contribution we would like to make. Put it in numbers. the number of employed people coming out of our industries, put into numbers. We do not have these. If we were to address these, then we will be talking and contributing to unemployment. By creating jobs through developing and stimulating a commercial sector and providing data services to close the information gap, we would be contributing to poverty alleviation because we'll be giving people tools that no one can take them away from. Already we've said Earth observation services can contribute to crop monitoring. Therefore, food security strategies can be implemented. It's a plea that I have, that we start dreaming bigger of what we have. Let's talk about services. Demonstrators, we have, and they're not going to change. Services to all of government on all the application areas, to a point that government starts taking it for granted like we do with our weather reports. Thank you.